Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode in the Future of Work series. Today we are joined with Serena Haththotuwa, and of course, I'm Sarah, joined with
Harry, joined by... Where's Charlotte gone? Splitter.
Hi, Serena. Welcome to the Future of Work series.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Harry.
Hello.
It's nice to be here.
Would you like to tell us about who you are and what's your why?
What's my why? Ooh, that's a big question. My name's Serena, and I'm from Northwest London. And a bit about me, I'm really interested in society and culture and politics. I did an international relations degree at the University of Nottingham and did a master's there as well. And I was really fortunate enough to live in Japan for a year. So I think that kind of really exposed me to learning about different cultures and kind of really thinking about how the way sort of cultures are structured and, societies are structured and how that really affects people on an individual basis. And that's something that I'm really interested in and passionate about because it made me, I guess it just made me realize that if a specific society is structured in a certain way and that affects people's lives, then you can kind of restructure it to make it kind of more beneficial to people's lives as well. And I think that explains the why.
It definitely does explain your why. How do you not know what your why is? You've eloquently said what your why is.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you bring up Japan. We were just talking about... Sarah had been
bear attacks in Japan.
Yeah, bear attacks in Japan before we started rolling. Yeah, because Sarah's been to Japan. She was telling this whole story about...
I got scared on a mountain about bears. I even have a Japanese print behind me. So, I mean, look how set this up.
It's all coming together.
I know, exactly. So what should the future of work look like to you?
I think for me personally, I imagine the future of work being a situation where I kind of get up every morning and look forward to going to my job, where I don't feel like I have to tailor my personality or kind of alter my personality to fit my workplace, which I think a lot of people have to do. And that's kind of a given in the society that we're in, where you're like, one person at work and then another person outside of work, which is, I understand it, it makes sense for a lot of different types of businesses. But for me personally, that's not something that I kind of want to be a part of my working life. And for work in general, obviously I'd really like society to be a place where there's less unemployment, where it's easier for young people my age and graduates to sort of get jobs outside of when they graduate from university or even come out of education in general, because I feel like we're kind of promised this like, this kind of lifestyle from when you're a child. Is like, if you commit to your education and do kind of XYZ things, you'll end up going into a job that you're interested in or passionate about. And at the moment, because the system is so flawed, that's just not happening. And unfortunately, because of like the pandemic, that we're only going to see that get worse, I suppose. So really, I think we should use this, crisis, that the global crisis that we're all going through, to restructure the way society is, I suppose, or come up with new ideas of how we're going to solve the issues to do with work and to do with the current work model. And I think Ethos happens to have like a pretty good solution to that. So yeah, I'm happy to kind of be contributing towards that in some kind of way through my time with Ethos.
I find it really interesting that you're sort of saying about like, you're kind of told at a young age that you can do whatever you want to do as long as you like work hard. And it's that like question you always get as a child, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's never like, no one ever says, I mean, what do you want to be when you grow up? Except you might not be able to do that. You have to work for all these different things. Also, you're a woman, so you might suffer a little bit more. Also, you're not white, so you might suffer a bit more. Or like, and actually you might not enjoy it, and you might have to change your personality to get into the career that you might want. They never say that to children. I don't know why. I feel like it's a bit unfair.
No, I totally agree about the personality thing as well. I think having to put on a sort of facade, I guess, for any workplace you enter it's absolutely soul destroying for you. I think coming home after the end of it long, because like I've said on the series before, I used to work in bars, and you know, having that sort of thing of, you know, having to be affable with customers but also have a bit of an edge so that nobody gets too rowdy is just sort of like, for one thing, I found it difficult to, you know, balance one and the other, and it just left me at the end of the day absolutely miserable, because that's just not what I'm interested in being like in my life or in a work environment, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it would be nice to live in a society where you bring to the table just your natural kind of things from your personality that make you who you are, and your job sort of like takes from that, and it's less kind of restrictive in that sense.
Yeah, it was one of the first things that stood out to me about Ethos, I think, with the job application, with all the questions. I know, Sarah, you weren't a fan of it, but it really stuck out to me, sort of like, you know, what makes you get up in the morning, what's your, like, what are your interests, but like genuinely, like, you know, not just list off some hobbies like cooking and watching TV, like what are you actually into? It seemed like interested in like who you are as an individual. And it was the first time I sort of had seen that in a job application, and sort of thought, that's really cool. That's different from anything I've seen. If this is the kind of work environment that's that kind of, that they're interested in creating around people, then
yeah, definitely. Like if that's what they're interested in, if that's what they're asking me and like want to know about me, then obviously like that surely it's like a nice place to work, and they really care about what you care about, whatever that is, even if it's like really different to the next person that works in the same industry as you or business as you.
And of course, you're very interesting because you actually proposed your own business when coming to Ethos. So what sort of opportunity, how did that opportunity feel for you? And obviously, you can tell us a little bit about Aspect if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely. So Aspect came about when I was in the process of interviewing with like Rob and Annabelle and Joel, I think. Yeah. And I kind of proposed, well, initially I was saying how I was really interested in writing and potentially becoming a journalist at some point in my life. And kind of all the things I was interested in, sort of like inequality and like social change and stuff like that. And they didn't really know exactly where to put me within Ethos. So Rob told me to go away and do some homework on the different projects and then come back with an idea. And initially the idea was Ethos magazine, which is a far stretch from where we're at now. But slowly over time, it just kind of morphed into Aspect magazine, and really developed its own identity and mission and kind of force behind it. And so at the moment, Aspect is hopefully going to be this online magazine and platform for people from all different backgrounds to share their experiences and to really kind of hopefully break down stigma within society about like the way in which people live their lives, their identity, and empower people as well. I think that's like a massive part of Aspect, which I hadn't really spoken about that much before, but really I hope Aspect will be something that empowers individuals from all different types of groups.
And I think it's so important to also note that the team behind Aspect, and of course yourself, are made up of people who were on universal credit. How do you feel like that has impacted the development of the magazine?
I suppose, I think the fact that we were all on universal credit, but also the fact that we were all kind of picked up by Ethos has meant that all of us kind of have quite a similar perspective on how the world works and how it looks. And so we all kind of look through the world through quite a similar like lens, if that makes sense. And then the fact that we were all on kind of universal credit at some point, it kind of has fueled the fire behind Aspect a bit for us, because we're all so willing for it to be successful, and we're also willing for it to be something that changes the world in some kind of way. That sounds a bit cheesy, but like I guess we're kind of united in that passion as well.
Well, I think it's fair to say change the world. If what else would you be into journalism for, really?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, unfortunately, there are some journalists who aren't really bothered about changing the world for the better, but like
We won't name names.
they we
We
don't
could
appreciate or maybe we will. No, I'm just kidding. Mostly, I think we're mostly united, the aspect team, in the way we kind of view the world around us and the types of things we care about. Because if we weren't specifically chosen by Ethos and like the whole culture of Ethos, we would be quite different people, I think, and maybe not all care about making an impact in a positive way and having and giving a platform to people who don't usually have their stories heard and aren't represented, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And I think, of course, trying to break into journalism or the magazine industry, you can face quite a few barriers as well. I don't know if you've ever found any problems with that sort of industry. I know you've had your own little dip inside of it before. And of course, interviewing Selena Gomez, the massive highlight of your career, but still. But are there any problems within the industry that you've really experienced or just you've become aware of?
There are a few, I suppose. And there's sort of the issue from, I think, with most kinds of forms of media, especially in the UK, unfortunately, where we're kind of seeing this like growing domination, especially in mainstream media, of like conglomerates, and a few individuals having complete control over some of the main media platforms. And we've kind of seen the effect that this can have on politics and society in general, and also the world as well, because it affects elections, it affects like so many different things in our society. And when you realize that, and you realize actually that's so unjust, and like we're supposed to be a kind of democracy with like freedom of speech and like freedom of press, and like really we don't really have that model at the moment. It kind of it is infuriating. And so now I think I have experience, and they're not really famous and not like as famous as they should be, but there is this kind of emergence of more independent publications and forms of press, basically, that are kind of contributing towards a more diverse set of opinions that aren't serving some kind of elite.
I agree with you so hard there. I think that again, not naming names, but a lot of the bigger media outlets belonging to a certain small group of people. Yeah, exactly. It's really sort of undermined freedom of press, I think, as you say. And I think that the internet has also just given, I guess, a good outlet for, like, I guess, more independent, sort of less, or at least more diverse array of news and opinions and biases, if you will, to come into the spotlight. I mean, I get all my news from Twitter, which I know isn't really good because it's an echo chamber and all that, but at the same time, like, like most publications most mainstream publications, are always going to have their own slant on them, I find, anyway. And I just find that...
Oh no, sorry to interrupt, but I don't think that using Twitter or even any form of social media is necessarily sort of a negative thing. But I think it's even important that like you realize that it's an echo chamber, which is something that people didn't realize even 5 years ago. Not that many people realized that, and now there's kind of this movement towards people really challenging the media that they consume and questioning its validity and transparency. So I think even just the fact that you have that perspective is like a move in the right direction.
Yeah, well, you got to approach all media you consume critically, I think. Always, you've got to keep your ears open with everything now, because information is everywhere, coming at you in all directions, and you've got to sort through which is important and which isn't, I think. Because otherwise,
I suppose that's the thing with Aspect Magazine, is that it is just one aspect of a larger story of a wider community, and what you're doing is bringing a diverse range of voices to show the different aspects of it.
Yeah. I mean, very relevant, like, and valid. It is an aspect of a story, and everything we post or publish will just be an aspect of it, one side of it. So,
and I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about what it's like to start your own business at your age, because you're very young, and how that has affected your future ambitions.
That's a really good question. I think it's definitely made me more interested in business in general, and kind of, I guess, have faith and belief that I could start my own business and can and am. There's something about kind of feeling that entrepreneurial spirit or whatever, and kind of believing in your ideas. And it kind of goes back to that whole kind of empowerment thing, which, like, I'm hoping Aspect will do, is like kind of feeling empowered to sort of make change, which I do feel empowered to right now through Aspect.
No, just sort of going back to what you're saying about entrepreneurial spirit, it's interesting to bring that up, because like this is what I'm trying to do at the moment. So I'm trying to set up my own production company, my own business as well. So seeing that you've been able to do it through Ethos is, you know, I don't want to sound too doting, but it's quite inspirational, honestly. Like, and to see that entrepreneurial spirit in young people, because I feel like before I worked here, that felt like entrepreneur felt like a bit of a dirty word to me, because I don't know, I always sort of aligned it very similar to con man or swindler or to somebody sort of pyramid scheme type stuff, you know. And since coming here, it's just been sort of like, you know, I do feel a bit more like get up and go, a bit more motivation to, you know, go out there and do what I want to do rather than, you know, what I have to do, like.
Mm-hmm.
And to see all these young people like getting to do that it's ace, mate. Pretty great.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but because I'd been in, you know, having getting jobs that had a more sort of conventional structure, you know, hierarchical, blah blah blah, and all the rest of it. It makes so much sense, but it takes a bit of time to get used to that. Like, actually, maybe I should be like utilizing my strengths and like the things I actually care about and want to do, instead of kind of putting myself into like a cookie cutter or like shoehorning in into a, you know, a job role that doesn't, that, you know, there are 50% of it I like, but 50% of it I'm not too keen about.
I mean, that really goes back to your original point about what the future work should look like, and that's something you enjoy and not having to change yourself in order to enjoy it. And so it's really good that that's something that you are finding, and especially in this more entrepreneurial, yes, I said it, I can't quite cannot pronounce entrepreneurial spirit. But yeah, I've now forgotten what I was going to say.
It's okay, it's 3 p.m. on a Monday. It's all quite, it's early for everyone here.
Yeah, it's only Monday.
No, just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because also, I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but when I was at university, I used to study a lot about like capitalism and like economy theory, and so like within that, it was like, you know, you'd learn about like socialism and communism and stuff like that, and thinking about different structures in society, that, you know, different work models as well, that could potentially work. And then, I don't know, I just find it interesting because I have really had to sort of go back to that and kind of apply that when thinking about, or basically applying the idea that there is an alternative work model that is as efficient and stuff like that. And it really brought me back to like my uni days of learning political theory and like Marxism and stuff like that.
I was going to say, did it make you nostalgic for capitalism? But I'm not sure if that ever will be the case. I suppose one other question I wanted to ask about is, obviously this video will be released around the same time that aspect is going live, and that the first issue is going to be coming out. And obviously the theme of the first issue is Bloom, and I'd like to know if you'd like to say anything about why that theme, why that was chosen.
So the idea came from the lovely Sarah Faye.
Humble brag.
And I know why you asked that question. But it just seemed really fitting to the period of time that the magazine is being released. Kind of globally, we've gone through this sort of global trauma, I suppose, you know, as a result of the pandemic, which has been really interesting. It's obviously been really sad, but it's also been, from a kind of political and social perspective, quite interesting. And we're, as a country, we're sort of coming out of it, hopefully. The idea of Bloom is to kind of think about ways in which, going into this new norm, this new society, we can make our society a better place than it was before. I think it's a real opportunity to start again. And so with Bloom, we're thinking, how can we bloom? How can we become a better version of ourselves and, you know, flourish, essentially, for all people in society, not just few. So that's kind of the theory behind it.
I love that.
It is lovely. I have to big up Sarah for coming up with that.
No, I've been shopping around a few of my artist friends who are sending who should be sending submissions in, and they're very on board with it as well. So should hopefully have a wide reach.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm super excited to receive submissions. Super excited to kind of, for it to be out and for it to be, you know, not just something that I mean, as a team in Aspect, we've been, you know, speaking about it, working on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so when it finally is a thing out there in the world, it will just be like the best thing ever. So yeah, really excited. Everyone read Aspect. And yeah.
I remember we have a launch party as well, so.
Yeah.
We'll plug everything in the description below. So. It's the first time I've done that. That felt very surreal. Going back to your very first answer, going back to Japan again. What was it about living there that sort of like specifically made you reevaluate how societal structure can sort of be changed over here or anywhere really?
That's a really good question. I think just because the society is so different, like I know, Sarah, you've been to Japan before, and like when you go there, you're just like hit in the face with like sensory overload, but also just like people are just so different, and the way people act, the way people like treat you, and just I think living there for an entire year was just such a surreal and amazing experience, and I think only when I came back did I realize how different our societies are, like Japan and specifically Tokyo and the UK, but also, you know, all society is really different. And I guess I don't think there was like one thing in particular that I was just like, oh, they're doing it right there and we should do that here. But I guess if I'm going to get a bit political, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to.
That's totally fine.
No, it's not going to be that political. But
I'm intrigued.
Well, no, it's not even that crazy, honestly. But I'm just being, you know, overly cautious. But just realizing how wealthy of a nation we are, and you know, Japan is obviously an incredibly wealthy country, and the quality of life there is really high for like a really large amount of people, especially specifically in Tokyo, and then kind of comparing that to the UK, seeing the difference between the way in which we have, you know, the way in which we spread money out across all people in our society is very different, and kind of realizing how the sort of history of a society and the way a culture progresses over time really affects the decisions that people make in contemporary politics, if that makes sense. Like in Japan, people really value specific qualities, but people just have like quite a lot of respect for each other, and it's really kind of aligned with religion to some extent. And that's something that still exists today. And so you can really see in certain aspects of society and culture and politics and the way people treat each other, how that manifests in contemporary society. It's just interesting to see that, and then compare and contrast between.
Yeah, I felt similarly. When I was 17, I spent a week in China, in 3 different cities there, and I felt very similarly, just sort of seeing the way everything was structured out there. And I think for one thing, because I was a teenager, I think it did just sort of highlight to me there sort of like how arbitrary the structure of any society is. That, you know, you grow up sort of surrounded by it, so you just think this is just how it is, this is how it must be or whatever. But then you sort of see how just other places live, and it's sort of like, oh, actually, we could be doing things differently if we wanted to. You know.
Most Japanese people are just like the nicest people.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, it's like the Japanese were the nicest people. And actually, one of my favorite experiences was just like, I don't know what they're called, but you know, there's like tables that have like heating underneath. So you sat on the floor and you kind of like just put your legs into this blanket and the heater. I miss them. They were so good. And I was just chatting to the hostel owner. There's only like, and like his friend and someone else who worked there. And they were just showing them around like my hometown, like on Google Maps, and we were just comparing experiences. And my favorite thing that one of my favorite things anyone's ever said was just like, he went, like a proper old man being like, don't you think technology talks to us too much nowadays? And I loved it. Yeah, I mean, in Japan, as like everything talks to you. Yeah. It was just such the old man, like technology nowadays.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I am that old man because
I wouldn't say I was not that old man.
I mean, I'm more just like social media rather than technology, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the main one, really. I think I'm more about advancement of tech. I'm a city boy in the end, but like social media, I think is the big sort of like. I'm very wary of the internet generally. I think because I think in the grand scheme of things, it's very young. It's very much in its still early phase, and I feel like people are still, you know, we've given it life and not shown it how to use it, like, or shown ourselves how to like. That was a bad analogy, but like. You know,
I know what you mean.
I think it's going to take some time for us to figure out how exactly to really be on it. Because right now it's very anarchic. It's very much the Wild West in a digital format. But yeah.
I mean, I was watching a Greta Thunberg documentary on BBC, and it was basically just saying how like we're doomed. Environmentally. No, it didn't really say that. I was pretty optimistic, but like, you know, we won't have to worry about the internet or data when
we're going through a climate disaster.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is such a weird perspective that I've like grown into, but I think it's that strange that because of COVID, I've kind of given up caring about the future a little bit, but not in like the way that I don't care about the future. It's more my future, and it's like people are like, so what do you want to do in your like 5-year plan, 10-year plan? And you can have children. I'm like, the world might end next year. It seems perfectly plausible at this point for the world to suddenly end.
I mean, I think that's kind of a good thing that you have that attitude. I know that might be a bit controversial to say that, but like, I think it kind of it shows you that like you can have all these ideas about what your future's going to look like and what your life is going to be like, but really, like, you know, a pandemic can come along, and who thought that was going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's what we're talking about is making each day count, really, isn't it? And like, if you have ambitions, if you have dreams, if you want to go into journalism and start a magazine, if you want to be an artist, if you want to make movies or whatever, you know, I think the pandemic's definitely helped me get my together.
So thank you, Serena, for joining us. It's been a really lovely time chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely chatting to both of you. And Yeah, thanks.
Read Aspect.
Yeah, read Aspect.
Yeah,
guys.
basically everyone read Aspect in the link below.